I'm Saumya, and on my channel Saumya's Bookstation, I spread all the book love that I can. So if you are a book lover or if you would like to become one, do hit that subscribe button, and also do not forget to press the bell icon so that every time I post a video, you get notified. Now, Haruki Murakami is an author who has captured the hearts of so many readers. There are so many readers in the reading community who go gaga over his work. And then there are people who are not exactly crazy about what he writes and how he writes. Now, I am somebody who stands somewhere in the middle of these two extremes. I am not a huge fan of his work, but at the same time, I find that there is a certain fascinating quality about his books that makes me want to pick his books up time and again. So far, I have read 5 books by him, so I'm not exactly qualified to join the Murakami Appreciation Society, but I think I am in a position where I can talk about his work to a certain extent. So this video is kind of a discussion video on my channel, and also if you want to begin reading Murakami and if you are a bit confused as to which book to start with, you can also consider this video to be a recommendation video. I'm going to talk about his 5 books and what I thought about them in brief, so let's get started. The first book that I would like to talk about is also the first book that I had read by Haruki Murakami in 2016, and that book is Norwegian Wood. I picked this book up because I love the title of this book. So this is easily one of the most famous book by Haruki Murakami. It's a story of a guy named Toru Watanabe who is in love with a girl named Naoko, and Naoko is none other than his best friend's girlfriend. And during Toru's college days, a girl named Midori comes into his life. Now Midori, even though she has a boyfriend of her own, and she's not exactly attracted to Toru, but she's certainly drawn towards his personality. Midori has her own problems with her family. Now calling this book a love triangle or a romance novel would be trivializing the plot to a great extent, because it is a lot more than that. The plot and the story gets depressing and dark and complex from time to time. I love this book simply because it was the first of its kind for me when I read it. For me, this book was a good experience because it deals with topics like friendship, love, and the complexity of human life. But I have to tell you that it can get disturbing from time to time because of certain topics like suicide and even molestation that have been talked about in this book. And also this book can get quite explicit from time to time. The next book is Sputnik Sweetheart. So a girl named Sumire, who is in her early 20s, falls in love with a woman who's 17 years older than her, Miu, who is successful and glamorous. Sumire, on the other hand, is an aspiring writer and she's anything but fashionable. On the other hand, Sumire has a best friend named Kei with whom she shares anything and everything. Kei, on his part, is in love with Sumire, but he knows that his love is clearly unrequited. And one day, Miu calls Kei from a small Greek island where she went with Sumire, and she informs him that Sumire has suddenly disappeared. Now, how come Miu and Sumire ended up in that Greek island is something that you have to read the story to find out. So, as a reader, I loved the first half of this book. I loved Sumire's personality. I found her spirited in her own way, and I liked her attitude towards life. I loved her conversations with Kei. But the second half of this book was something that I did not really enjoy. It kind of went completely over my head. I felt as a reader that the magical realism aspect and also the aspect where Haruki Murakami left a lot of situations open to interpretation was a little too overwhelming for me as a reader. So I did not really enjoy the second half that much. The next book is Kafka on the Shore. Now this is again one of the most popular titles by Haruki Murakami. So a 15-year-old Kafka Tamura runs away from his house because he does not like living with his father. His mother abandoned him when he was 4 years old, and his father has made a really dark and a creepy prophecy about him, and he wants to get away from his father's dark shadow. On the other hand, there is this character called Nakata, who is an old man who is able to talk to cats, and as a result of which, people in his neighborhood often employ him to track their lost cats. A very unfortunate incident took place in Nakata's childhood, and he was afflicted, and he was never able to recover from this affliction. But he leads a simple life. Now these two seemingly different characters with completely different lives come together in the story in a way that we are not able to anticipate. As we read the book, their stories converge in an unbelievable sort of a manner. I don't know how to describe this book because it is a lot of things. It is unusual, it is weird, it gets disturbing, it gets creepy, it gets all of these things at the same time, and most of all, it blows your mind. There were some scenarios in this book that made my skin crawl, and some other scenarios were rather disturbing to read. But on the whole, this book is a page turner. It has a lot of magical realism going on in it, and it has a thrill factor as well. Some suspense is taking place and you want to know how events are going to pan out. When I read Haruki Murakami's book, I try to make sure to keep an open mind. But even so, there were some incidents and events in this book that I found rather distasteful. If you as a reader are open to stories that can go to any extent, then yes, you can go for this book, and it is definitely well written. The next book is Men Without Women. Now, this is a collection of 7 short stories about 7 different men from different walks of life. Now, the one common thing about these 7 men is that even though they have female interaction and even though their lives are not completely devoid of women, but none of them have a woman permanently in their lives, and as a result of which they lead a somewhat lonely existence. So one story has a doctor, one story has students, another one has a bartender, one of them has an actor, and one of the stories even have Gregor Samsa from Metamorphosis. I personally liked 3 stories in this book, and one of them I liked in parts, and the remaining 3 stories did not really capture my interest. So overall, I had a mixed opinion about this book. The next book is Killing Commentators. So this book came out in 2018. I also made a review video of this book separately. If you want to check it out, I'll leave the link in the description for that. So in the story, an unnamed artist is abandoned by his wife for another man in the beginning of the story, and as a result of which he leaves their apartment and he moves into a mountaintop cottage that belongs to this really famous artist called Tomohiko Amada. And after he moves into this cottage, some rather unusual things start taking place. So we are introduced to new characters. There is this really rich man named Wataru Menshiki who lives across the valley. There is a 13-year-old girl named Marie Akikawa. There is a painting in the attic of the mountaintop cottage which is titled Killing Commentator. There is a 2-foot tall human that calls himself Commentator. All these elements come together to form this story, and it has a lot of magical realism going on in it. I personally had a good experience with this book. I'm not going to say that I did not face any issues at all. In fact, there were around 100 pages in this book that I found a bit uncomfortable to read because of certain explicit situations. For the most part in the book, which is the remaining 600 pages, I enjoyed this book and I did not get bored at all. So these are my thoughts on the Haruki Murakami books that I have read so far. Let me know in the comment section. So these are my thoughts on the Haruki Murakami books that I have read so far. Let me know in the comment section if you plan to read any of these books, or if you have read any of these books, then what are your thoughts? Do we have similar thoughts on these books? Please let me know in the comment section. I am really looking forward to hear from you guys. I hope you liked this video. If you want to connect with me on my social media, the links are in the description box. I'll see you in my next video. Till then, bye bye.